Welcome to VoteProPot-Cast, brought to you by VoteProPot.com. Welcome, everybody, to another episode. We are really glad that you're with us today. I'm Phil Adams.
I'm Jay Britton.
And I'm Andrew McCready's.
2018 was a big year for cannabis. The shift in public opinion toward greater acceptance of cannabis really accelerated over just the past few years, and especially, I think, last year. There has been an explosion of businesses and business opportunities within the new cannabis industry. And as with any industry, it brings with it the need for reliable information about laws and regulatory compliance. And that is certainly no less true of the cannabis industry, perhaps much more, certainly much more. One company that has stepped up to fill that need is an Ohio-based firm called CannaRev Solutions. Now, CannaRev is not a law firm, but they do provide a range of consulting services to companies in the cannabis industry. Jay spoke to one of the founders of CannaRev, Chris Nani, and we have that interview for you right here.
Today I'm going to be talking to Christopher Nani. He and his business partner, Greg May, have co-founded CannaRev Solutions. Chris, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hi, thanks, Jay. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on the show today.
It's great to have you, man. Chris is a final year law student. I got that right?
Yes. I'm a third-year law student.
And his partner is a practicing lawyer. Tell me a little bit about Greg May, your partner.
So Greg's been an attorney for about 30 years. He has a business background, and he's really good at just kind of figuring out how business, what their needs are, just kind of from a high level. And so he's been in the industry for a few years as well, and he kind of comes from a background of doing applications and licensing.
I see. How did you guys hook up?
We met on LinkedIn. I saw he was the only other attorney in Ohio that was openly saying, "Hey, I do cannabis." And I just reached out to him. I said, "Hey, that's really cool. Do you want to get lunch?" And we just kicked it off from there.
No kidding. All right. Well, and so tell us a little bit about CannaRev.
Sure. So CannaRev Solutions was founded a few months ago. And what we noticed when I first met Greg is that in the Midwest, there was a lack of knowledge surrounding the cannabis community. And we kind of wanted to help fill that vacuum in bringing our knowledge and expertise of it. So just a little bit about what CannaRev Solutions does. We predominantly help with licensing and applications, as well as doing compliance issues. Mm-hmm. So I know you had mentioned before we were doing regulations, and that's a really big part of what we do. We're not just, centered in the Midwest. We help clients out all across the nation. We are in Columbus, Ohio.
You're working with companies all over the country.
Yes. So our most recent client, they're in Illinois. They're a land investor, and we've been working with them. Ah,
okay. My assumption is that you work a lot with startups, grow operations, and dispensaries and so forth. But what other kind of businesses do you work with? What kind of ancillary cannabis business?
Yeah, so that's a great question. A lot of our businesses, they usually come up to us, the clients. They say, "Hey, we have an idea. We're not sure how we want to implement it, but we'd like your help." So, for example, one of our clients, they want to develop a product, a topical cream, and they'd like to do a CBD and THC infused one. And so right now we're in the process of helping them find a processor to infuse it, and then hopefully a distributor or a dispensary that's going to sell their product.
Gotcha. In the cannabis industry, I would assume, and maybe I'm wrong, that it's much more difficult to set up and start a business just because of the red tape and regulations involved. I assume that's why you've kind of found this little niche, this kind of consulting niche for the business. Is that right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are a ton of regulations out there. California probably being the most regulated state out there.
Shocking.
And just moving down the list. Yeah, exactly, right? There's just volumes of paperwork that you have to go through.
Yeah, I've read that. And, here in Maryland, when we went legal a couple of years ago, my partner, Andrew McCready's, was interested in, getting a permit for possibly a grow operation or dispensary, and he was involved in some of the panels and so forth. Not only was the red tape just obnoxious, but the costs were incredible in Maryland. I don't know if it's like that in other states, but I mean, you had to have hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get your name in the top of the list.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. A lot of grow sites, like I know in Illinois, I think they require either a $500,000 or a $1 million surety bond just to say that you have this money in case the federal government comes to raid your facility or something like that.
Right.
You want to make sure you're insured.
Holy mackerel. Yeah. So
there are tons of opportunity barriers, I guess you could say, startup costs that prevent a lot of people from even getting in the business.
Wow. What about the smaller ancillary businesses? A husband and wife that want to start like you talked about, a topical. Aside from the startup costs, which are apparent for any business, what about the regulatory and licensing and permitting fees? Are they higher than it would be for a norm? Like say I was starting a construction business or a brick and mortar. Are the startup costs with regard to regulations and permitting a lot higher for cannabis, we would assume?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So just the application itself, in some states it's between 10 to 20,000.
Jeez.
And then on top of that, you have to show that you have, all these liquid assets ready to go, all these business. So I mean, you're looking at a total of about $3 million per licensed business.
Wow, holy moly! So the little ma and pa's are going to have a tough time, really, really breaking the ice on this one, huh?
Yeah, the mom and pop stores, they probably won't be able to get in the cannabis industry right away. But there is a silver lining to that. The Farm Bill just got passed, and so if your state does allow CBD, you can open up a CBD store. And my money's on CBD long term. I think it's going to be way more profitable than cannabis will be.
Really? That's interesting. Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Let's just kind of touch on the Farm Bill, the 2018 Farm Bill, which, of course, is legalizing hemp for growing. What are your thoughts on that? Have you dug down into the intricacies of this bill?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of good language in there. There's some things I wish they would have added, but I mean, it's still a very significant step for the country entirely. So you're looking at the 2018 Farm Bill. It legalizes on a federal level hemp production, which means it gives it to the states to decide if they want to produce hemp. I think 47 states allow hemp production right now, so it's a very significant amount. And with the deregulation of hemp, you can produce CBD from that. And CBD is kind of the market a lot of people are getting into. Some people don't like the effects when you smoke, the high.
The psychotropic effects, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What got you so involved in the cannabis industry? I mean, is it kind of the untapped potential of the medical cannabis, or is it the political and social unfairness of the law? How did you get so involved in it?
I would say there are two reasons I got involved in it. The first, about halfway through law school, I took a seminar on marijuana. And I wrote a paper on 280E, one of the tax code provisions on it. And I just got really hooked on the industry. I saw a lot of history in it, a lot of complex issues that not a lot of people were willing to tackle. And then secondly, just as far as my immediate family goes, I have a few family members who have some illnesses or ailments, and that they either consume CBD or some other product to help get through that. And so my goal is kind of to give that product out to all the people out there that need it. So if you have PTSD, arthritis, something to treat that, something to make you feel better. I
see. So you're a true believer in the medical value of cannabis. And it's
absolutely. I believe 100% that it has medical value.
In its compounds. Yeah. I mean, I'm the same way. And I have to be honest, I was pretty skeptical for a long time. And it wasn't until really the last couple years that, I mean, you can read stories all the time about, I was dying of a tumor and I smoked a joint and it went away. It's anecdotal, but now with Israel and some other places, some other countries have really invested some time and energy into research. We're finding out there's something there, isn't there?
Yeah, you look at our neighbor up north, Canada, they just went full adult use across the nation. And they're starting to find all these results from it, all these good things about, the entourage effect, for example. That
exactly.
In cannabis in the whole form, it's better for you than just taking one cannabinoid at a time, like CBD.
Yeah, and we've done stories on exactly that. And, there seems to be something to it. Andrew's a big believer in the whole plant entourage theory and crushing the whole plant and juicing it.
There's starting to be studies of it now, research being conducted. Now that the federal government's opening up to the idea that maybe it is a good substance that we need to look into it more. It does help it. It's got anti-inflammatory properties as well.
Yeah, well, that part of the problem is it's so much of it is just anecdotal because the research is so limited. How is this hemp bill? I shouldn't say hemp bill, the farm bill, as it relates to hemp. How is that now that hemp is off Schedule 1? How is this going to affect research?
So the big thing now is that the DEA won't say you can't research anymore. That was probably the biggest obstacle, is that you needed to get permits through the DEA, which is kind of tedious to do.
And they have limited strains and so forth as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you think this is going to really be a boost for obviously for the hemp business? I mean, I see this hemp business exploding in the next 5 years.
Yeah, so recent estimates, I saw this one report, I think by Breitbart maybe, but they were predicting that the hemp industry will be $22 billion within 5 years, which is just insane.
Let's touch on some other news. What do you see happening in the next year? What big changes do you see coming in 2019, Chris?
2019 is going to be a big year for the cannabis industry in general. I know a few states in the Midwest are going to be going full adult use. Illinois is probably going to be the front runner there. Their governor-elect made one of his goals to make it adult use in Illinois. So I see that being one of the first states going. I also see more legislation being passed in Congress for either nationwide medicinal, or I've seen a few for adult use, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I definitely see a lot of legislation, a lot of talk. Do we need medical cannabis across the nation? Right.
Well, what do you see with regard to cannabis in Schedule 1? You see any changes coming in the near future or no?
So there is one bill. There's a few bills in there right now, either to deschedule it or reschedule it. That would be great. The FDA's had their own studies of it. The DEA's had their own studies of it. Even in the 1970s under Nixon, he even had a study, but he destroyed it, just kind of saying that we need to deschedule cannabis because of all the benefits. So I'm hoping either under this administration or the next one, they're going to take some of that research and reschedule it, whatever, to make it easier on all of us. A lot of people just don't know what the industry is about. They don't know the difference between a sativa or an indica. What's the difference between hemp and marijuana? So a lot of our, business is educating people.
I see.
Which is something me and Greg both really love to do. We don't charge anything for that. We kind of just, if someone asks questions, we want to help them, educate them so they can make the best decisions, because ultimately that's going to help the industry as a whole grow.
We have quite a few followers, and your name came up. CannaRev Solutions came up often as a company that would provide helpful information, education, without raping the businesses. And when it comes to education, you guys are open to just taking calls and helping people out. And I assume that really helps steer business your way because you're being helpful, right?
Yes, absolutely. You can't really start a business if you don't know what to do with it in the first place, if you don't know what to buy or what you need for it.
Right.
So really, our goal is just to educate. That's number one.
Well, a lot of our listeners and followers are people who are on board because they want to get into this industry, whether it's some of them are just want to invest, want to go to the stock market and try to find a company in Canada they can invest in. But a lot of people want to start businesses. So if they wanted to get in touch with you, Chris, what's the best way?
So the best way to get in touch with me is either through my email, which is chris@canna-revsolutions.com, or just Googling CannaRev Solutions. It'll take you straight to our webpage, and we have a contact form you can fill out, and we will answer your questions as fast as possible. It's something I don't mind doing at all. I could answer emails all day.
And we'll put that information on the show notes, of course, with links so people can jump right over to your website. And you can just go to a contact page on their website, type in a question, and you guys will get right back to them, right?
Yeah, that's how we do it here. We're really just trying to help people out, get them in the industry, help grow everyone.
I wish you guys the best. Again, appreciate your time, Chris. And like I said, it's going to be an exciting year. With the differences from state to state, every state that is legal has different laws and different regulations. And trying to weave through all this shit is impossible without somebody to help you out, somebody that understands what's going on. So,
absolutely.
So that you guys are there for that. So everybody who is interested in starting a business, you got a couple of questions right off the bat, send them to Chris. He can help you out. And CannaRev Solutions is there for you, at least to get you started. And then maybe you can hire him to, I guess you guys do applications and permitting and help them through that rigmarole red tape as well, right?
Absolutely. We do all the way through just, making deals as well, compliance work, the whole 9 yards.
Well, Chris, thanks very much for coming on with us. We really appreciate it. And again, I'll have contact information in the show notes. And I wish you a happy new year, buddy. Thanks for taking the time to be with us.
You too. Have a good new year. And thanks again for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
So, Jay, what were your impressions of the interview with Chris?
Well, I thought one of the takeaways for me is something we have discussed and we read a lot online, and that's the difficulty for small businesses, startups, to get into this industry, especially with adult use, but medical as well, because it's so financially. It's so expensive to get a company.
Yeah, you have to be really rich to get started in
According to Chris, you're looking at $3 million to get started.
Right. That's ridiculous.
It's crazy. So, that's one of my takeaways. Also, I think, Chris it's a new company, and they are, one of the things that I've heard from other people is that they're very open to just answering questions. So for our listeners who are trying to, think they have an idea for a company, a good place to start is to call CannaRev Solutions or email them and just ask the question.
Yeah. Well, I agree. And I think he had and I will speak about this in a little more detail in a moment, but he had a lot of good stuff to say about the implications of the cannabis portion of the new farm bill that was just passed and signed. I think, at least the hope is that continues a trend towards, more and more federal acceptance. Descheduling would be simply removing it off the list under the Controlled Substances Act, which is the Nixon era act that put it there in the first place. Rescheduling sounds to me like it would mean moving it to maybe Schedule 2, along with other drugs that are surprisingly there, like
cocaine,
PCP, and other drugs that apparently have medicinal value. So either way, taking it off Schedule 1 could be a massive step.
Well, that will allow research. It will allow insurance companies to pay for cannabis.
Yeah, and the
medicine.
problem with, even Schedule 2, you're still going to have to get a prescription for it. And that's, to me, it's a question is why would you need a prescription to buy a plant?
Well, that's a great question. So, but we'll see how that shakes out. We'll take it if that's the best we can get for now.
Well, the Farm Bill distinguishes between hemp and medical cannabis.
That's correct.
Hemp, and CBDs, you won't need a prescription for. You can you'll be able to go to Walmart or small boutiques and buy it with no problem.
Right.
And the people can sell it without having to get a special license.
That's right. And the Farm Bill is now law of the land. So that has been passed. So basically, the difference between legal and illegal is that the hemp cannot contain more than 0.3% of THC. So if it's 0.3% or less, legal. Anything more than that, illegal. So it's a step.
It's a big step.
We spoke in detail over the last couple episodes about the industrial uses of hemp, and I think we're going to see that rev up over the next year and several years. In terms of paper production. Andrew, you even talked about cinder block production. It's so many uses for this plant, and the people in the states that grow it, folks like Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, are very happy about this.
Might be good here to kind of touch on what the hemp portion of the Farm Bill says. Essentially, in a nutshell, it says that CBD, cannabidiol, you can sell it, you can grow it, you can process it. It will allow businesses in the United States, farmers and retailers, whoever, to get insurance, crop insurance, federal crop insurance, which they couldn't do before. Even in states where hemp was legal, it allows the makers and sellers to get financial services from banks. They can use credit card processing now. Even where hemp was grown before, or where CBD was sold, the credit card companies charged a huge interest rate on top of their normal interest rate for CBD purchases. So it's crazy.
Right. It was just CYA.
It's a CYA in case the feds come in and, yank the. Also, it's good. You're going to see it kind of gives a nod for the big box retailers like Walmart and Target and all those to get more involved in keeping CBD products on their shelves. So it's a huge step in the right direction in terms of cannabis legalization.
And of course,
Mitch McConnell is obviously pro-hemp because Kentucky, before Prohibition, Kentucky was one of the leading states for hemp production.
And like you said, you couldn't get bankers involved or credit card for sales. There's certain things you couldn't do to process it. So it just wasn't attractive to the average family farmer or small business person. And now it is.
right. And the irony is that because they decided hemp was not good for you, they decided to stop growing hemp and start growing tobacco.
There you go. Yeah. Because that's so much better for you.
Well, I think the fact that this guy's a lawyer and he's giving us the legal perspective of the industry and how to get into it is important. I think he has a lot of good information, and I'm so glad.
And how difficult it is, and the fact that this business, the cannabis industry, unlike others, is one where you need a consultant and an attorney to get into it because it's so complicated and there's so many regulations.
Well, that's one of my pet peeves about this issue is I really believe that with all these new regulations being written up, we need to make sure that small businesses are included.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
Because of the nature of the industry, which I'll get into in my segment, there's so much to it that you can't allow just big marijuana to come in and do these massive grows where they're growing it, they're producing thousands of tons. Whereas a small grower, at the end of the year might produce a couple thousand pounds.
It's not unlike farming in general.
Right, not unlike
It's
at all.
not at all.
Corporate farming has completely taken over the small farmer in most parts of the country. And, this is just a continuation.
So, as always, we love to hear your comments, corrections if needed, questions that you may have. Please, we would love to hear from you. If you have a comment, you can go to the bottom of the show description and leave a comment there. Or you can find us at VoteProPot.com.
You can send us an email at votepropot@gmail.com. And now we have a message line where you can call and leave a short message, and we'll do our best to play it on the show. That number is 240-257-2441, and that'll be in the show description as well.
Please like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And just do a search for Vote Pro Pot. There's a lot of similarities between the cannabis and wine industry. And a lot of people are wondering, will big marijuana come in and monopolize and put all the small-scale farmers out of business? New research shows that it's not inevitable and sustainable that small farmers are going to be on the outs. Actually, quite the contrary. There's definitely a niche for small growers in the cannabis industry. Small-scale farms have dominated by staying under the radar because obviously they were illegal. But now that it's become legal, the big corporations have the dollars and the resources to dominate and muscle out the small growers and small businesses. But there are hundreds of strains with different characteristics, tastes, aromas, and effects. The difficulty in growing certain strains make it a lot more difficult for big producers to grow certain strains. So we're going to see these small artisanal growers will be concentrating on just growing a few exotic strains. Some states are creating legislation that protect the small growers by spreading out the opportunities to many across their state and putting limits on what big businesses can grow. Now, the big corporations are more or less likely coming in from out of state and taking profits out of the state. So when politicians are running for office, they can use this as a campaign issue, saying, we're going to encourage the cannabis industry, and we're also going to encourage small businesses and limit what large businesses can do in our state. So we will give opportunities to the people who live here. And I think a lot of politicians could benefit from that. The ways that the wine industry makes that work, they've incorporated something they call the appellation system. It's spelled Appellation.
Never heard that.
Appellation. Anyway. So the wine industry adopted what they call the appellation. The appellation system is a legally protected designation of the geographic area where it comes from. So when you buy a bottle of Napa Valley wine, you know it's from Napa Valley.
Ah, I see.
Okay. Now in Europe, they also enforce quality and cultivation methods per geographic area. So when you're buying a certain champagne or cognac or Bordeaux wine, you're going to expect a certain level of quality and a certain style of wine that's made the same way across the region.
And you know where it's coming from.
You know exactly where it's coming from.
Like champagne.
Right. Now, the U.S. has designated appellation systems across the United States, and currently there's 236 specifically wine appellation areas in the United States.
Did not know that.
The appellation system can do more for the cannabis industry than just that. Now, what it can do, it can protect the origins from of your product. So when you say you're getting Humboldt County cents a million, you know you're going to be getting Humboldt County cents a million, or sativas, whatever.
And that encourages the small business folks to really, provide a top quality product, I would imagine.
Right. And it'll keep the big businesses from flooding the market with mass produced product.
So what would keep a big business from coming into Humboldt County and opening a 100,000 acre grow facility? You know what I mean?
Well,
and they can still call it.
What you do, all the growers, they start like an association. So a growers association. So any new growers coming into the area really kind of have to abide by, if you want to call your product by that appellation name, you have to operate by certain standards,
Right.
and quality controls.
I see.
And then you get the Humboldt County,
Kind of like a chamber of commerce.
right? You get the county commissioners to go, listen, guys, we'll let out of state people come in and buy in, but you're not going to put us out of business. You can only we're going to limit you to growing only so much, and that's what they'll end up doing. Though the big companies will start opening up little micro growing operations that concentrate on quality instead of quantity.
Like there's a whole slew of small wineries right around our area here in Maryland, Virginia, and then there are the big, Ernest and Julio Gallo type growers that cover vast tracts and sell tons and tons. But the small wineries can compete too.
Right. So now what this will do is this will encourage the growers in certain regions to start working together to setting rules and standards to guarantee the quality from all the products from their region. Now, what this one also can do is it will promote agro-tourism. Now, you see that in Napa Valley, people vacation there, people travel there, and you're going to start seeing that with growing facilities. You'll start seeing event venues where you can go have a weed wedding. Now, for example, now Mendocino County in California has designated 12 appellation areas. So now you'll be able to say, I am going to be getting a 2018 South Medina Coast OG Kush.
Gotcha.
So that'll be
Just like wine.
I just got a bottle of 2018 Napa Valley Cabernet Robert Mondavi Reserve.
And I think consistency, I don't know about certain products like flour, I don't use it, but I'm sure there is an issue of consistency over time and over regions, and they can kind of tell you basically, what kind of effect you're going to have, but how reliable is that?
Well, circling back to CBD, that I've read many articles on people testing CBD products before it's become nationally legal, and the variations on strengths and comparisons to what's on the label to what's actually in there are vast. I mean, I read somewhere, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they tested like 100 CBD products, which were stealthily bought off the shelf and tested, and something like 75% of them, the ingredients did not match the label.
Yeah, and it seems like still a little Wild West out there.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that the hemp bill or the farm bill and the hemp portion of it should correct is, setting up federal regulations to say what's on your label has to be what's in your product.
Well, one of the businesses that's going to be booming are testing labs. There's
big time. And
I hope so.
I've read articles on investing in cannabis, and that's one of the places that a lot of the talking heads suggest to put your money is in some of these testing operations. But I have an article from a couple months ago that we ended up not doing on the show, but that's what it was about. They tested the testing agencies. They would send a product, a sample to like 3 different testing, and they got completely different results from all 3 of them.
Right. So we need consistency.
So there is a role for the federal government to play in all of this, as far as setting guidelines and standards and whatnot. The role of the states and the regions in this Appalachian system that you're describing, Andrew, sounds to me very much like a kind of a local chamber of commerce, where if you want to do business, you've got to be in our group and not try to take over the whole thing. Everybody gets to play,
to share.
Yeah, and everybody gets a vote within the organization.
Everybody gets a vote, and I think that's and what we really want to try to get away from is the hyper federal regulation and taxation that has led to what a lot of people refer to as crony capitalism. It means that only the people with the money and resources to lobby the government or to navigate all of the huge, labyrinth of regulatory compliance get to play in the industry. That's ridiculous, and meanwhile, the small companies get crushed and squeezed out. That's what we really need to avoid as far as the federal role.
Well, the federal government has to understand that it's a very complicated industry. It's not simple. You just don't throw a seed in the ground and grow it. There's so many. It understands the importance of the different strains.
But one of the problems is the moving target. I mean, look at California. They keep changing regulations, which I understand you have to make adjustments. But when people set up businesses based on a set of rules, and then they get established and you change the rules, and that's happened in several instances in California in particular.
It's happening all over. It's happening all over.
Is it?
And it's going to continue to happen because there are businesses out there that are sort of in a gray area, especially in Canada and in California, or even in Washington, that set up what they believe were, legal businesses, and then regulations were written that put them out of business. Or maybe
they were regulated out of business.
Right. So that's a problem.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you're right, Andrew. That's going to continue to happen as the dust kind of settles on this, because it's very difficult to conduct business in an atmosphere of uncertainty like that. And I don't care whether it's cannabis or widgets or whatever it is you're making. It doesn't matter. There has to be some consistency and there has to be predictability.
All the more reason for federal law, so that you have a consistency federally. Beyond being illegal. To legalize it nationally, you would have a set of rules that each state could abide by for the general things like, labeling, that kind of product consistency and so forth, just like they do through so much of the business world in the United States. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, if it can work in the wine industry, no reason it can't work in the cannabis industry.
The weed and wine industries have many bridges between them, and I believe that they can actually complement each other instead of compete with each other. They're both recreational substances that sort of revolve around flavor, smell, and aroma, and the psychotropic effect. One can critique weed like they do wine, saying it has great legs, it has this flavor, this note, this effect. And yes, there are and has been for a while weed snobs, like they're wine snobs. Weed is also like wine, where it's an agricultural product, where growing the grapes and growing the buds is an art form. I mean, there's a lot to it, which is another reason
that's true.
Why big businesses can't on large scale, you can't groom individual plants the way that they need to be groomed. Certain strains need to be groomed. Mm-hmm. There will be strains that are really high quality and have distinctive effects and characteristics that some growers are going to grow. They're going to be highly exotic, high quality product that will sell for obscene money. $800 to $1,000 an ounce is what you're going to see. See, Francis Ford Coppola is already doing it. Woody Harrelson's doing it. Jim Belushi, and that's just to name a couple of celebrities, not including all the non-celebrity businesses out there doing this. Similar to the wine industry, the cannabis wants to establish what I don't know how to pronounce this word, terroir. Now, what the terroir is the geographic location and conditions it's grown, the type of soil, the type of topography, and the type of climate that the grapes are grown. And that will definitely affect. Now, if you have a soil that's going to be high in slate or iron, it's going to affect the flavor of the grape and affect the flavor of the wine. And they take that into account when critiquing wines as where it's from. And now the weed industry wants to do that. Now, the way they are going to do it is they're going to create something similar to the wines, the American viticulture areas. That's saying, so this area, which could include many appellations, are high in slate, or the product grown in this area is going to have certain characteristics because of the soil, because of the topography, because of the climate. Now they're trying to do this with weed as well. There's also another similarity between the people who enjoy wine and cannabis. There's a lot of similarities. For example, they both will go, oh, this has a certain note of a smoky flavor or a fruity aftertaste. And that's where the wine snobs are going to thrive, or the weed snobs will thrive. Some people don't see competition between weed and wine because of cannabis becoming more mainstream. Now, what they're finding is the weed and wine industries are going after the same customers, the same age group, and what they're trying to do is create long-term customers that are going to be loyal to their brand. And the way they're going to do that is by educating the consumer and making it more of a intimate personal experience by purchasing from them. Now, wine companies have been doing that in a few different ways. One of those ways is direct to customer sales. Now, you can go online and order wine. In some cases, in some areas, you can order wine right from the manufacturer. I think cannabis wants to do that as well.
You see, you don't have to choose between wine and weed. You kind of have to choose between beer and wine. Am I going to have a beer or am I going to have some wine? But you can sit and have a glass of wine and smoke some weed all at the same time. So it's not really a one or the other thing. So yeah, same customer base.
As they're going after these customers, what they're finding out is that these customers already made the decision on how much to spend on wine and weed. They've made that decision years ago, and they've been doing it for a long time. So now that cannabis is becoming more mainstream, they're finding that it has affected alcohol sales in some areas, specifically like cheap box wines and quantity beers, like your 30 packs of Coors Light and Bud Light, which are purchased more for the buzz than for pairing with caviar. So what they're finding out is that, especially the high end, is not really having much effect. The cannabis industry is not going to really have a negative effect on the wine industry.
Yeah, nobody pairs caviar with an old Milwaukee Light. So
speak for yourself, man.
So now the cannabis industry, their appellation system is nowhere near what the wine appellation system is like, and they have no chance of getting close to that anytime soon. And even setting it up is going to be difficult. There's a few ways that they can cooperate with each other. One of them is you're going to see wine company licensing their names to cannabis companies. So you'll be able to see an Opus One sativa, which could be pretty huge. Because Opus One has such credibility. Cool. You're going to start seeing now there's a difference between private and public events. There's what's becoming popular are pairing events between wine and weed. Now, you can't do that in public, but there's a gray line between public and private. So you're going to start seeing more privately run cannabis and wine tastings. You're going to start seeing more wine and cannabis tours in like the Napa Valley. Like, for example, Mendocino County is between Humboldt County, that is known for growing great cannabis, and to the south, the Sonoma County, which is great for growing wine. So you're going to start seeing cannabis tourism where they're going to be going, you'll visit a dispensary, then you visit a vineyard, And the other thing I believe you're going to see is the wine companies are going to start making non-alcoholic infused wine. Now you're seeing infused alcohol, regular wine, but a lot of the legislators are writing up regulations that does not allow infused alcohol products. So you're going to see
you can have one or the other, but you can't have both.
One or the other.
Right. So you'll see wine companies coming out with non-alcoholic infused wines that you'll be able to drink in social situations the same as you would regular wine.
It sounds like the wine industry is kind of providing a blueprint here, which they can really take advantage of.
One thing I've noticed lately online and in person when I go to the dispensaries is that there are a lot of new users, people who've never smoked before or haven't smoked in decades. Now they're coming in, they're asking a lot of questions, and some of them are really simple questions, and people who are experienced, they're sort of rolling their eyes going, God, you don't know the difference between indica and sativa? Geez, But there are no dumb questions. One of our missions here at VoteProPot is to educate the consumers and the voters so they can make better decisions.
There are no stupid questions, and we're here to try to answer all those non-stupid questions, because you're right, Andrew, people, just don't know. I didn't use or I haven't partaken in weed smoking for a long, long time, and a lot of this stuff was very new to me, and it's going to be new to other people too. So that's what we're here to do.
So have you learned a lot since becoming involved with this project?
Oh, volumes, really, really a lot. I mean, there are just I can't begin to tell you how much is new to me.
Same
on
here,
this.
Phil. Same here.
So, I mean, there really is a lot to know, and a lot more I'm going to learn, I'm sure. I'm starting to become a little bit closer to the amateur expert that I'd like to be, and Andrew, you've brought a wealth of knowledge about this.
So
stuff.
What you have learned has changed your opinion, both socially and politically, about cannabis?
Perhaps. Now, I came to this politically believing that cannabis should be 100% legal everywhere for every adult. But there are other aspects that I just didn't know about, the nuances of it, that I won't say changed my mind, because I didn't know enough to have a strong opinion about it. But it all conforms to my belief that, this is America, damn it. If someone wants to smoke some weed, they ought to be able to smoke some damn weed. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's always been my, that was my view coming into this. And I would say it's only been confirmed and reinforced. Well, thanks again, folks, for joining us today. We hope that you've learned something as well and added to your knowledge base about cannabis and cannabis products and the laws that govern them. And there's a whole lot more information available to you. We're going to put a lot of stuff that you can access right in the show description below. And there's a lot of great information on VoteProPot.com.
Send us an email at VoteProPot@gmail.com or leave us a message on our message line at 240-257-2441, and we'll get you on the show.
And please like and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Just search for VoteProPot.
Wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. But here I am in New York City, hiding out in Central Park, getting kidnapped by the police today sometime before dark. But I wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old sense media at the beginning of the day. The judge looked down upon me, frowned. He said, kid, get on your way. Just don't start out your morning with espresso and a J. I said, I wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old sense media at the beginning of the day. Hitched on out to Portland, caught a ride up to BC, took the bus over to the neighborhood to have a bowl with my coffee. Now I'm up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old sense media at the beginning of the day. Smoking good old sense media